How do you make the feminism that you talk about and that you promote through For Harriet, how do you make it class inclusive?
I think my first thing is recognizing that I come from a very class privileged background. And so I make it a point to say that my background should not be the default, because everybody does not have college educated, graduate level educated parents.
Mm-hmm.
I went to wonderful schools. I knew from a really young age that I had lots and lots of options.
Right.
College was inevitable. Like, that's just what you were going to do. And so I make it a point to, if we are talking about what poor women need, I can speak for a poor woman. You know, I think that there's this idea of like, I'm going to give a voice to the voiceless. It's like, no. They have their own voices.
Yeah.
Okay? So what we need to do is be listening to women who come from a different kind of, what I need to do to make sure that my feminism is not bullshit is listen to women who have that background, who have those experiences, that they need to be centered in a conversation about what lower income women need, what poor women need. And so I can be supportive and I can direct people to your books or your channel or your Twitter. I can do that, but I cannot fill that gap.
Right.
I think that feminism really has to be as much about learning and listening as it is about, getting our hot takes off.
I agree. I think it's also about what do you consider a success? As an example, like a lot of times a measure of how feminist a company is going to be how many women are on their executive board. But to me, if you have a female CEO, but no comprehensive maternity leave, or like the majority of your lowest paid workers are women, that's not a feminist company.
Right. I think we've seen this with I don't know if I should say names, but there are these feminist companies that
names
where it's like Thinks has come under.
Oh yeah.
And it's like these companies
away,
girl boss. Right. So they espouse these ostensibly feminist values, and like that's a part of their branding, and like we're community sisters, right? But like, how are you treating your employees?
Yeah.
What type of culture is there? These things are incompatible. You can't treat people like shit and then say that you're a feminist company.
In some ways, I think that whole phenomenon, I don't think it's intentional, in the sense that like I don't think people intentionally set out to create a toxic environment for women, or they set out to use, quote unquote, sort of corporate feminism as a shield for that. But what I think often happens is, like, if you look at companies that have, female founders, female leaders who are working insane hours, who are, putting themselves in a really high stress position, and let's be honest, oftentimes have access to things like a lot of domestic help and like an ability to throw themselves into work to an extreme degree, I can see how it would be easy then, even without trying, to be like, well, why can't you other women do it? I can do it, And I feel like that's part of the whole idea of like having it all.
Yeah.
It's like ultimately that just comes down to how much money and help you have.
Yeah. I mean, our ideals of success are so masculinized. So it's like, if the only way to be able to work, like you said, like 80 hours a week or whatever, you gotta have some help at home. Like, who's cooking your meals, who's taking care of your kids, who's cleaning your home. And you also have to dig into this idea of like, it's grind culture, like hustle till you die. And like that stuff, those ideals are created by men. This idea of we're hyper competitive and do whatever it takes and by any means necessary. And so if you've tapped into that, like if you have not done the work necessary to question it and deconstruct it and like, why is it that way? And you have bought into it wholesale, then that stuff is going to creep into your company. And it doesn't matter how girl bossy it is, you can't, the structures of your company have to be fundamentally compatible with like collaboration and like we help each other and like an understanding of like nobody does it alone. Totally. We are only able to do this because we have help. And so, just rejecting, and it's hard to reject that stuff, especially, one of the reasons why I never wanted to raise money is because once you take the money, you have decided that you're going to dial into those ideals and those values and those priorities. And there is no wiggle room to say, oh, but maybe we can slow down a little bit, or maybe we can have some allowances, or maybe we can spend more money on providing maternity leave for 3 months and that stuff. When profit is the only thing that matters, then you're gonna have to trade some values to make some money.
Totally. I think what you said earlier about going back to the Kardashians as like when people will prop them up as feminist ideals. It's like the question really is, well, to what extent does their empowerment trickle down?
Yeah.
And I feel like that applies just the same whether you're running no matter what your situation is. It's like, does empowerment for you translate to empowerment for those around you?
Yeah.
You know, or is it just you doing a lot better?